Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 140 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be Professor Dave Kama, Rickson Gracie black belt and head of Kama Jiu Jitsu, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do, let's do our quote, and that is, if you are not comfortable to deal with an opponent 50 pounds heavier than you, there's something wrong with your jiu-jitsu. If you're not comfortable to fight with no time limit, there's something wrong with your jiu-jitsu. And that is from Master Rickson Gracie. All right, Professor Dave Kama is a 5th degree Rickson Gracie black belt and is one of the very few people to have trained under Master Rickson and have all of his belts awarded by Master Rickson, including blue through black belt. Professor Kama is also number 2 of the Dirty Dozen, a moniker given to the first 12 non-Brazilians to earn the coveted black belt. In this interview, we talk about his start in martial arts, how he discovered jiu-jitsu, the early days in the garage with Rorion Gracie and Hoyce and Rickson and the whole gang, challenge matches, what it was like back then, his philosophy on learning and teaching jiu-jitsu, why self-defense is so important, the most important things for new jiu-jitsu students to learn, as well as advice he has for older people in jiu-jitsu. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. After the interview, please make sure to stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Professor Kama. All right, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of speaking with Professor Dave Kama. And welcome to the show, Dave. Thank you so much for taking time to be with me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, it's an honor and a pleasure. And you have such an interesting background and journey through jiu-jitsu through the years, including being one of the original Dirty Dozen. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as being with Master Rickson Gracie over the years for pretty much all of your, or most of your journey, starting out and getting all your belts from white to black through Master Rickson, I believe. So very interested in how all that got started. So what led you to jiu-jitsu and how did you get started?
So I was doing martial arts before I found jiu-jitsu. I did some kickboxing, I did some stick fighting, and I was kind of interested in stick fighting and knife fighting. So I did some of that. I even experimented with Kung Fu for, I think, a week or something like that. And Taekwondo I did for a while as well. But it was just kind of like looking for some kind of martial art to defend myself, basically. So I was just kind of searching around for different martial arts. And I had injured while I was doing kickboxing. I was actually doing Sabat for a while, and I actually injured my knee. So I thought, well, I injured my knee bad enough to where kickboxing was going to be really, really difficult after that. So a friend, one of the guys inside the gym, he was he knew somebody who was doing jiu-jitsu. He was taking a couple lessons in jiu-jitsu, so he had shown that to the group a couple times. So then I went back to him and I asked him. He says, "Yeah, you know that jiu-jitsu. I was kind of interested in trying that out and see what that's all about, right?" So so he gave me Rorion's phone number, and so I gave him a call. And at the time, Rorion was he had the gym inside his house, so he had like a 2 or 3 car garage with a little room in the back, which he used for private lessons. So the whole garage was matted off, and that little private room in the back for private lessons was all matted off. So just went over to his house. He says, "Come on by," and met Rorion, signed a few waivers, and then my first private lesson was with Hoist. So and that was one lesson. I told him about my knee. I have this knee problem, and I says, "Is that, I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, so is that going to be an issue? Can I do jiu-jitsu with my knee like that?" And Hoist said, "No, you can't. You can't do jiu-jitsu with your knee like that."
Wow.
So I told him, "Okay, well, ignore what I asked you. Let's just keep going."
Nice.
So So I just started taking lessons. I wanted to see what it was all about. So he started teaching me a lesson, and starts teaching me the private lesson, and I just kind of fell in love right away, because that's actually all the stuff he was showing me was actually all the stuff I really wanted to know. Kickboxing is fun. You learn a lot in kickboxing. Taekwondo was fun. You learn a lot in Taekwondo. The stick fighting is fun. But jiu-jitsu for me at that point was way better. It was like a couple notches above. It's like that's exactly what I wanted to learn. So that's kind of started.
That's really cool. I can't tell you how many times I've heard something similar stories where, people have done other arts, or at least dabbled in other arts, and were enjoying it, had a passion for martial arts, but when they got introduced to jiu-jitsu, something just kind of clicked, and it just felt so much more like what they were looking for, right, on a deeper level. So that's really cool. It's always exciting to hear that, and love how you were able to be in Rorion's original garage. What a great time to get into it, right? I've spoken a lot with Richard Bressler, who was back there in the garage in those days, and it's always fun to hear about those stories.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like I think Rorion was there. I think eventually Rickson was there. Horler, the Machados were at their house, and they were teaching private lessons along in their house. So
wow.
You would get moved around from, I just took a lot of privates, because I liked it so much. I just started dumping my money into it, and just asked them how many spots have open. So I'll take all those. So,
nice.
Yeah, and then you would just, if they didn't have time for you, then they would, or somebody was busy, they would move you over to somebody else's garage. Like go to Rickson's garage, or you go to Machado's garage, or you go to Rorion's garage. But typically, I ended up in Rickson's garage for whatever reason. I was taking privates with Rickson, and it seemed to always fall on Rickson all the time when I had my private lessons. But
what was your first impression of Rickson?
Rickson, back then, they were all good. They all kicked my ass. So, they were all really good. They were all really good teachers. So I really had no idea, who was better, who was worse. I liked Rickson's teaching. And I at the time, it's kind of a funny story. I had no idea who he was. I didn't know he was the family champion, and who exactly he was. He was just Rickson, who was my teacher, and nobody really explained to me who he was back then. I didn't find out till maybe a couple of years later, and somebody explained it to me. But
that's really cool, actually. Yeah, imagine just training for years and then not knowing, and then when you find out, you're like, wow, I didn't know what I had there, or what I have.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Up that way.
So you gravitated more often to Rickson's, but you certainly had an array of incredible practitioners and instructors there to teach you. How did it develop from there, Dave?
Just start taking as much lessons as I can. I mean, that's kind of how I progress. Like I said, Rickson's teaching, I liked his teaching better than some of the other teachers. Not that they weren't good at teaching. It's just I liked his style of teaching better. He was able to answer my questions a little bit better than some of the others. So I like that. He could break it down in more detail and more connection and stuff like that. So it was a lot better. So and after a couple of years, I found out who Rickson was, and then, so that kind of all made sense after that. So why I kind of liked his teaching. Not over the years, not I don't think everybody can learn from Rickson. I found a few guys that don't really they can't really learn from Rickson because the way he teaches. So everybody has their own teaching. Mm-hmm. It has their own style. Everybody has their own they learn a different way, right? Some people learn like verbally, some people learn by physically. So it just depends, I guess, And Rickson has a kind of a way of just back then. He just kind of beat you up, I wouldn't say beat you up, but you roll with him and he kind of just like goes for arm locks and sweeps and stuff like that. And then he teaches you how to defend against that stuff. So some people don't take that very well.
Sure.
I think one guy had said that he didn't really like Rickson's teaching because, he gets beat up the whole time. And then I go, well, to me, it's like depends what kind of energy you give him. And also it's like, he's teaching how to defend against him. So he is the world's best. So, I mean, if you can defend against him, I think you'd be doing pretty good.
Yeah,
so,
you're good to go.
I wouldn't worry about it too much.
No, it's a good point though that one size doesn't fit all as far as what people respond to or really get the best out of. So there's lots of different teaching styles and methodologies, but some people may really get, like you said, some are auditory, visual, kinesthetic, different ways of taking in information more dominantly and what clicks to them or resonates to them. So some people may really, of course, I mean, there's the mystique of Rickson that people gravitate to, but as far as the actual teaching, some people may benefit from other styles or approaches as well. I remember the first time I met, he was the first Gracie I met. Of course, had seen Hoist in the UFCs, and that got me interested. But I went to a seminar. I got the old VHS tapes with Rorion and Hoist, and I was living in the Florida Panhandle, and I drove down to Tampa, and this was in '96. And you may have been with him. I don't know, because I know you were with him at a lot of the trainings back then, right?
96, you said?
Yeah, in Tampa, 96.
Yeah. Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was that big. It was like it was in a huge center.
Yeah, I thought, because I thought I'd seen you pictures of you, and I said, yeah, I didn't know who you were at the time, but later I was like, I think that was Professor Kama was with him at that one. So anyway, that's small world. But I remember he just had this kind of air about him that was just like, wow. Very down to earth on one level, but also had this air of just, you don't want to mess with him. He's definitely the real deal. But it was just a very interesting energy, if you will. And then he had a certain charisma when he talked and everything. I just thought he was the coolest dude. But again, like you said, some people respond to his teaching and some to others. So what was next? How long before he went out of his garage and got into open up his own academy, and what was it like for you during that time?
So there was a garage just for a while. I forget how long we were in the garages, but Rorion opened his gym in Torrance, and so we all went there, and we started training at the Torrance gym. And I honestly, I don't know how many years I was there. I was there for a while, and then Rickson, went off on his own to his own gym. And I don't know all the politics was going on there. I typically stay out of politics, but whatever was going on between the brothers and stuff like that, Rickson went to his own gym. So when Rickson left, I I kind of went to his gym as well. So I was going to Rickson's gym, and I liked, Torrance gym was convenient because it's close by my house. So I kind of wanted to go to Torrance. So I paid for Torrance, and I you pay for like Rickson's gym too. So because he's generally been, most of my influence throughout my whole, until that time. So I kind of want to stick with him. So he was basically my teacher, but I liked Torrance because Torrance was close by, and I could get more training in that way. So the guy, and also when Rickson left, the training in Torrance changed totally. Rorion changed the curriculum, so they're going into a mode of like teaching the same move. Way back when, the same move was being taught like all week long, and for me, it drives me nuts. I like learning something. I like learning something new every single day. And then, and some, like we were talking about people's learning abilities, some people learn better if they were just taught the same thing over and over and over and over again and just kind of commit it to memory. I learned a little bit differently, and I once you teach me, I kind of got it, and then I'll try it right away. And then if I have more questions, I'll ask you more. But it drives me nuts to learn the same thing, spend my time listening to somebody teach the same move over and over again for the whole week. So that's kind of also the reason I went to Rickson's as well, because to kind of keep me moving along. But so that's kind of how it went.
It's interesting because you were aware of that, right? I recognized what works for you early on, because for some people, they're just like you. And if they get it, they don't want to waste time, just continuing to be taught the same thing for several days. There's others that it's probably just as frustrating if they get it once and then they're on to something else and like, wait, I need a lot more repetitions. I've seen this before. I feel like I can do it. So it's important to recognize that within yourself and what you need, and find somewhere that really fits with you.
Right. And all the teachers, all the jiu-jitsu teachers, across the United States and Brazil, they all teach differently, So some will like randomly pick moves and teach you moves. Some will like be a really nice curriculum, they'll go through that curriculum, and some will force you to go over the same move over and over and over again until you really, really have it, and then allow you to move on. So it just depends on, what, in my mind, it depends on what fits for you. You have to kind of gravitate to the teaching that best fits your the way you learn.
Absolutely.
So,
all right. So you were doing a lot of the training there, and what was the atmosphere like? We talked a little bit about how Rickson taught back then. What was the overall atmosphere of his academy, and who were some of the people that were there training with you at the time?
It's kind of like. I kind of remember it as kind of aggressive. It might have just been me and where I was in my head back then, but we were just pretty much in there to learn moves and to fight, basically. So, you hear all those stories about somebody new comes in the gym and then that person turns into meat and everybody goes after that person, right, just to try all their moves out, stuff like that. So yeah, we were kind of in that mode back then. We were so hungry to try out these moves and make them work, and then somebody new comes in and you start, you kind of go after them a little bit and kind of play with the moves. And it was kind of rough. It was a little bit, but it was.
Sounds like it was more than a little bit, but hey, that's where it was, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where it was.
Yeah.
It's over the years, it's kind of calmed down. We're a little bit more, more aware that, it scares a lot of people away, like that. So we try to, I guess nowadays we section off the guys who want to beat each other up like that. And then section off the other people who just want to learn how to defend themselves and stuff like that. And they don't necessarily want to get tortured, on the mat. We
Absolutely.
just kind of separate that, be aware of that. So,
well, back then was not just for you guys, but I think for a lot of the jiu-jitsu world, it was still in what's known as the prove it stage, right? It was still somewhat new, and you wanted to know it worked as well, as you thought, and you wanted to prove to other people that it worked well, and that was the whole thing for the UFC, a whole reason. Later on, after I think the world took note and collectively realized, yes, this is the real deal, I think it was easier to kind of back off a little and not, at least not all the time, be so hardcore.
Yeah, and you go to seminars with Rickson, and they, at the end of the seminar, he'd make a ring with everybody, and then he'd take his the people who are helping him teach, and then he'd put them inside the center of the ring, and then let everybody try to attack us, and whatever they wanted to do. So,
Nice.
So that kind of, yeah, that was kind of fun too.
You had to be on your toes then, right?
Yeah. So every weekend fight. I mean, it's just, you have no idea who showed up for the seminar. You don't know who signed up. It could be Olympic wrestler, or it could be sambo or judo, or it doesn't. You have no idea who you're fighting with. So
wow.
You just get thrown in the mix. But back then, nobody hardly knew jiu-jitsu, so very few knew jiu-jitsu. So it was pretty easy to just, anybody who walked inside that ring would just, you'd pretty much play with them and then tap them out. So,
wow, what an incredible time.
Yeah.
Similar to that, but probably different, was some of the crazy challenge matches that went on. And, just like with this, I mean, probably a little more controlled at a seminar, I would hope. But people would come into the gym and want to just challenge either Master Rickson or you or any number of people there. So what was that like?
That was kind of crazy. That's when the first one I did is like, you're going to get, everybody thinks about it, you're going to get a fight. You get a little nervous before you get a fight, but now you're going to go into a fight, and, you brought me in, signed a waiver saying that if I accidentally kill him, or he actually kills me, my family won't sue him or won't go after him.
Wow.
So that actually states it on there. If I accidentally die, then his family won't sue me, and he won't, all that kind of stuff.
If you weren't nervous before that, you would be then, right?
Yeah. And my reaction was, hey, is this guy going to sign it too?
Seriously. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. And so then, it's a little bit different too, because you go inside that ring, you go to fight somebody, and you're not fighting some average Joe in the street. I mean, you're fighting somebody actually, who is taking the challenge on because they've been training in martial arts or been fighting for a while, and they think they're pretty good.
Right.
And they probably are. He wants to take a challenge and win the money from the Gracies, right? So you're not fighting some average Joe. You're fighting somebody who knows how to fight. So it just puts a little bit more pucker into the whole gig. But yeah, it was fun. It was good. Jiu-jitsu works.
Nice.
Works really.
It was good.
Really,
it was
really
fun. Jiu-jitsu works. I like that.
Yeah.
Were there ever any times where you worried, when you were worried, not nervous, because it's kind of, I mean, pretty normal to be nervous in that atmosphere, whether you're doing the fighting or if one of your, friends or colleagues in the school, nervous for them, but were there any times that you remember like being, I'm kind of really worried in this situation for some reason?
Back then, no, I wasn't too worried. It was just my, pretty headstrong back then. I just wanted to fight, and then I knew jiu-jitsu worked really, really well. Like I said, I've taken like kickboxing and stick fighting, stuff like that. So I'm kind of well. Back then, I was kind of well. I mean, even now, but I was kind of well aware of what people can do to me. As far as boxing and kickboxing, I thought was some pretty good kickboxers. I fought some wrestlers that were pretty tough to fight. Sambo, judo. So I've fought like, different variations of martial arts. So I kind of, Jeet Kune Do also, but I kind of know what people can bring to the table, right? And, so I wasn't too worried about it really too much. But I'm not dumb. I know that, things can happen, even though you may be a superior fighter, things can happen. The guy catches a good punch or something like that, you can go down. So
right.
I totally understand that. Really have to watch it,
Well, how great it is that you could go into it with that level of confidence and clarity. Like you said, you're not dumb. You know that some variables that you hadn't planned for could happen, but for the most part, you had that confidence that what you were bringing, could take care of what you were going to encounter. So that's amazing. Jiu-Jitsu works, like you said.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
When did you open your own academy, Professor, and what was that like? What led to that, and what was that like?
So I had been teaching for Rickson for quite a while. I just kind of fell into it. I come all the time to the classes, and then it was at Rickson's gym up in the LA area. So I was coming all the time. So then they, eventually Limon was he was kind of over there overlooking the gym for a little bit. So he asked me to start teaching. So then I started teaching for up there, and then they opened the gym up down in Laguna Niguel, and Rickson was teaching there, Limon was teaching there, and then Rickson. I don't know exactly how that worked out, but Rickson, it was kind of a far drive for him to go down to Laguna Niguel. So he eventually faded out of Laguna Niguel, and Limon was down there. So he eventually faded out because it's a long drive for him. And then Mark Eckert was starting to teach down there because I think Mark moved down there. So he was teaching down there, and then they needed more teachers down in Laguna, and it's closer by my house. So I started teaching down in Laguna, just kind of helping out. Basically, that's all it was. But then Mark left out of Laguna, and then all of a sudden I'm the only teacher in Laguna Niguel. So then I was the head teacher at Laguna Niguel now, because by default everybody's gone, right? So so I just kept on teaching. It wasn't really my desire to start a school. So I just wanted to teach, and so I just kept on teaching the students that came, and it just gave me some workout partners and stuff like that close by my house. So I kept that up for years. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Ryan showed up. I'd known him from years past in the Gracie Academy, and then he showed up and he started taking lessons and stuff, and then he had interested. He had to move to Texas for a lot of different reasons, and so he was looking for a gym over there, and he ran into some issues over there with the gym. I mean, he went to a gym, and the gym people were asking what he was doing, so he kind of showed the move that he was doing, and then all of a sudden everybody's interested in what Ryan was doing, because he's pretty much destroying everybody over there. So they're asking him a lot of questions, and all of a sudden the teacher kind of got nervous, because I don't think the teacher was all that good either. So he tried to have Ryan sign a non-disclosure agreement saying he won't open a gym close by or anything like that. So Ryan called me up and he asked me, he says, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a gym, and I was wondering if you want to start a business, and I told him my normal story. I'm not really interested in starting a gym, but I'll help." But long story short, we started talking about it more. We both agreed to start a gym, and so he started the first gym in Texas, and then we kept the one in Laguna Niguel, and then it just things progressed from there. I mean, we just started working it, and started advertising, and started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's doing really well. We got a curriculum down, and from there it's working really good. So that's kind of how it all started.
That's great.
And so now we have 3 schools. We have one in Austin, we have one in Dallas, and then we have one in here in California.
3 great areas, right, for schools?
Yeah.
So I noticed you have a number of programs, the kids, adults, standard stuff, and then a premier program. Tell us about that.
Basically, it's what we do is we try to enhance it with enhance the programs with fundamentals. Mm-hmm. So kind of bringing it back to the days when you get the 30-minute privates. Way back in the garages, they would give the privates, but the privates were only about 30 minutes long, right? So they would just show you some moves, and you do them real quick. 30 minutes was fine for what you're teaching. So we're kind of bringing that back to the 30-minute fundamentals class, and it has a little bit to do with like Rickson's idea of going back to fundamentals and making sure we keep the fundamentals alive, because we feel that a lot of the fundamentals are kind of being lost now. So we're trying to bring that back and try to make sure we keep the fundamentals alive, so we keep on teaching it, so that we won't lose all that stuff, because it's a good foundation for everybody to learn all the fundamentals. A lot of the old timers, a lot of the old jiu-jitsu guys, they were raised that way. They took all the privates and they got all the fundamentals and they have it in them. But some of them don't, some don't teach it, some do, some don't. And then if you don't pass it on to your students, then your students don't teach it, and it just progresses on from there. It gets worse and worse and worse, and then the fundamentals just kind of get lost. So we started this fundamentals class to kind of bring everybody back to fundamentals, and then they take a 30-minute private, once a week. So it kind of, and it's a cheaper way to get a private also. So nice. It's more enticing, because people need privates. I think people need privates, and they need groups, but some people don't have the money to do that. And then private lessons are going through the roof as far as price is concerned nowadays. So we're trying to like give people opportunities to get little privates here and there, so that they can keep that, we can keep that alive. And it really helps out the students to kind of learn, if they miss a few group classes, they can go back to their private lesson, and they can get their lesson plan, and they can kind of make sure that they're plugging all the holes and they're not missing anything, in their game. So, yeah. So
I think that's a great idea. It's a great concept, because, like you said, you benefit from the group, but you also benefit from privates. And if you can't afford privates, because, like you said, they're getting so expensive, and they're, more times than not an hour long. So I like the half hour, because chances are, being able to afford it is one big plus, but chances are you get to really focus on, one or two like things, and really try to dive deep, instead of, if you have an hour, chances are you might try to cover too much, or a lot of that time is just repping. And I'm a huge believer in repping, but I think you can do that after you learn what you need to from the private, and then pull whomever you need to just rep the heck out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't like repping inside private lessons, because that person's paying a lot of money to learn. And if they want to rep it, they can rep it on the outside, because I kind of want to make the time they're spending for it as valuable as you can for them.
Yeah.
So
I agree, and I think that combining those two things into that program it's a great thing. Speaking of fundamentals, or people just starting out, what do you think? Besides focusing on the fundamentals, what do you think is the most important things to know, learn, or be aware of for the beginners?
For beginners, we just like to teach self-defense. I mean, so that's what really attracted me to jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of what Poise taught me right off the bat. He grabbed me by the first move he taught me, he grabbed me around the neck, said, "What do you do?" So it's I like doing that. I like teaching self-defense to the white belts, because it's to me, it's the core of what jiu-jitsu is. The first year of lessons you learn basically teaches you how to fight. You can do challenge. For me, I felt I could do challenge matches after a year. It's like I knew enough to that complemented some of my other skills that I would do fairly well in it. So, but so it's teaching the self-defense stuff, and then on top of that, what you're doing is you're teaching people how to escape things. So escape from the mount, escape from cross-side. Escape. Somebody is on your back. Somebody puts you in a position, they're on top of you when you're face down, and they have the hooks in. Ryan calls it worst position. Yes. But so just escaping out of everything is I think like for white belts is they should concentrate on that. I mean, we throw in some like finishes, throughout there, some sweeps and, but really really need to concentrate on like not getting stuck, like not getting stuck from cross-side, not getting stuck from, somebody's mounted on top of you. So if you really focus on that, that'll really help you later on, because when you start like adding like submissions and attacks and stuff like that, you'll be more you'd be more comfortable with going attacking, because say for instance you can't get out of cross-side, just hypothetically. Anybody gets you on cross-side, you stay there and you die there. The guy taps you, or you can't get out, and whatever. If that's your situation, when you're fighting, if you go after a submission, and every time you go for the submission you get rolled, and the guy gets cross-eyed on you, you would never go for that submission anymore. You just like, I'm not trying that, because if I try it and I mess up, I get cross-eyed, and then then I'm done, right?
Right.
So you'd be less apt to try those attacks. So now that you're less apt to try those attacks, you won't get good at those attacks. You'll be lousy at those attacks because you're scared to even try them. So I think that white belts just concentrate on escaping things and resetting. Like if you get in a bad position, escaping it and resetting. Because if you can escape and reset all the time, out of any hypothetically any position they get you in, you can defend and reset and escape, and then reset and go back after. You can do that same attack again and again and again and again and again. You can try that same attack, because every time you try the attack, the guy beats you, and then he gets cross-eyed. Crap, I did a bad job. Move, put him back on the guard, and I go back after the attack again. It says, the guy beat me again. He passed my guard, and then he's cross-eyed again. Crap. So get out of cross-eyed again, put him back on the guard, and go right back after that attack again. It's like, and so what it does is like, it gives you like more shots at the apple. I mean, I get more chance to try it, and eventually, I'll get really good at it, So you'll start working all the problems out. I could try it more. But if you're afraid to even try attacks, I mean, so that means the number of times you try the attack is going to be a lot less. So your chances of success are a lot less. So that's kind of why I kind of push like the white belts to learn to do escapes. Definitely like make sure you have all your self-defense down, So
I think that's a wonderful approach, focusing on escapes and the things that are the most important, right? Self-defense, being able to defend yourself, and then your escapes and being okay in a position. And from there you can build. But if you try to skip that, and a lot of it I think is important at that stage too, is mindset, right? Because if you're a beginner, invariably you want to go so fast. You just want to know it all, right? And you want to go at laser speed. But having them realize that going slow is going to benefit you, right? Don't get in a hurry. You're right where you are supposed to be. You learn how to be comfortable in these bad positions, learn how to escape the positions, and then that you have to fail to get better. Like you said, you may try something any number of times and aren't successful, but each time you're building those pathways, you're gathering information, you're tweaking it, honing it, and then all of a sudden you're able to pull something off and escape. So, and that's where you get confident once you're able to start doing that, right?
Yeah, and then you mentioned something that kind of that I do is, like you said, go slow. So a lot of white belts, they use a lot of speed or use a lot of strength, and they and say you get one guy who's really fast, and as soon as you make one little mistake, he jumps and he moves really fast, fast, and you can catch everybody, right? So I said, you got to slow down. I said, well, if I slow down, I'll catch it. I says, well, that's because you don't understand the move, because you should be able to do it slow. And the person, it says the prize, I guess I'm not using the right word, but the prize is when you start going for these moves is the beauty of some of this stuff is like sitting in front of somebody and saying, I'm going to go for a rear naked choke. And that's all I'm going to go for. And then tell the person, you defend however you want. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to get the rear naked choke. And then you just proceed to, slowly dismantle him and go very, very slow and give him every opportunity to defend, no matter where you're at. Give him every opportunity to defend, but slowly dismantle him and then get to his back and then choke him. I mean, that is just, for me, that's beauty.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah. So, and the guy can't even stop it. It's like, and I'm not, it's not meant to like demoralize the person. It's just like, if you want to go for like, how good do you want to get at jiu-jitsu? So that's where you want to go. You want to be able to tell the person what you're going to go for and how you're going to do it, and he can't stop you. And you'll do it really, really slow and not really fast and not a lot of strength, and he just can't stop you because the leverage, the connection, and the pressure is just too much, and he just can't stop it, and you get it. And then it's like, and then that's, for me, that's a beautiful thing,
That is a beautiful thing. At that point that you've reached a certain level, man, and you're good.
Yeah. And you try to do that everywhere, but that's the goal, and you try to get better at everything. But nobody's good at every single position, but that's always the goal.
So what about any thoughts or advice on older practitioners? I watched a video of yours recently, and it was centered around older jiu-jitsu practitioners. Should they be promoted in a different way? I'm not trying to get into that at all. People can certainly search for that if they want that. But as far as people that not necessarily are even starting older, but most of us, I know me for sure, are getting on up there in years. And what thoughts or advice do you have for people like that, for people like me?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of controversy with that, but I'll just say that just generally, older practitioners, you've got you're sometimes you're weaker, sometimes you're not as mobile, sometimes you're not as flexible, so that really, it's like, to me, it doesn't really matter if you're older. It doesn't really matter if you're, because when you say you get a whole group of young people inside the room, so nobody's older inside the room, but there's weaker people, there's skinnier people, there's smaller people. I mean, so I know there's women, there's men. I mean, so there's a lot of differences in people. So I think of older people as just another category, So you could be weaker, you could be, you could get an older guy. I can get an older guy inside my gym, and I have in the past, and the guy is more fit than some of the younger guys, and he can just destroy the younger guys, But so it really depends, So for older people, I mean, it's the same kind of program. Learn your self-defense, learn your escapes, I guess the controversy for that really comes when you start talking about belts. Some people say, sometimes older people will say, hey, I'm older, I started late in the game. What's the chances of me getting a black belt? And I go, well, can I get a black belt? And I says, oh yeah, everybody can get a black belt. And then it says, well, what's the chances of me getting a black belt? I go, it's like less that you're going to be able to get a black belt, because you're older. Say the guy's 70 years old. It says you're 70 years old, just starting out, and you want to get a black belt. Well, generally speaking, it takes about 10 years to get a black belt, and you go through a whole lot of torture, a whole lot of time putting into that jiu-jitsu to get a black belt. Can you get a black belt? Yeah, but the possibilities of you getting a black belt at you're 70 years old, it says that'll be hard. I hope you do get a black belt, and we'll try to do that, but it's going to be hard. And then what they commonly is brought up is if he knows all the moves, can he get black belt? And I go, well, no, because really the belts are for, and every gym has their own criteria as far as what the belts mean, but my criteria for belts are for fighting. And Rickson kind of talked about this, and I kind of agree with him. It's like, belts are for fighting. You get a colored belt because you fight like a blue belt. You get a purple belt because you fight like a purple belt. right? You can fight. That doesn't mean you can beat everybody, all the blue belts and all the white belts. You could have like, you fight very well as a purple belt, you can get a belt. You've earned that, right? So that's how you get a belt. Just because you know all the moves, if you don't fight at all and you just learned all the moves, you won't get the belt. You shouldn't get the belt. And sometimes people do get the belts, but I kind of disagree. I think that's a disservice to the students to give a belt when they can't defend their belt. It puts people in a really bad place almost immediately. Say if you give somebody who fights like a blue belt, but he's an older guy and he's a really nice guy and he knows a lot of stuff, but he still just fights like a blue belt. But he's been around for a really long time, so we'll go on and give him a black belt. That guy will never fight in the gym again, probably, because every time he goes in the gym, the blue belts will eat him alive. The purple belts will eat him alive. And they'll just play with him. And he can't go to another school because, he's sporting that black belt because the blue belts will eat him alive. And so pretty much that guy will slowly not train anymore because he'll get demoralized all the time because, he can't defend his black belt, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I agree with a lot of that, and I know you don't care if I agree or not. I'm sure, but I agree with that philosophy. But I also think what if you got a black belt when you were 22 and now you're 65? You're certainly not the same black belt fighter as when you got the black belt because age does diminish certainly our physical attributes and sometimes even our skill. Hopefully not a lot with the skill, but our ability to do it on that level is definitely different, right?
Yeah. So that's the other argument, right? So if you go by what I just said, you're saying, well, should you now take the black belt away from a guy who got his black belt at 20 years old and now he's 80 years old and he can't fight like a black belt? Do you now take his black belt away? And I go, okay, so you missed first. The point of the matter is that person at one time in his life, he fought, he learned, and he learned everything. He achieved the black belt at one time in his life, and at one time in his life, he fought like a black belt. It's kind of like learning it's kind of like getting your master's degree, right? So you got your master's degree because you learned and you passed all the tests and stuff like that. But you get to 80 years old. Do you remember anything on your master's degree? It's like, no, damn thing. I says, well, then we take your master's degree away. He says, no, we don't do that. So it basically is like at one time in your life, you earned it. So that's why I say older people, can you earn that black belt before you get too decrepit or you die? I don't know. You might not be able to. You might have started too late.
I got you. Yeah, because if for the older person, they never reached that level earlier in their life, and in order for you not to have to lower that standard, it's highly unlikely that they're going to be able to get to that point. They might, but it's going to be a lot harder, right? Yeah, the same thing with, it reminds me, like what you're saying reminds me of kids' black belts. I mean, this is a pet peeve of mine because you got these certain arts. I don't want to pick on Taekwondo, but they're kind of notorious for it. Let me disclaimer, I think all arts have merit and everything, but it does bug me when people give a 11-year-old a black belt and it's like, can they really fight, or did they just do a certain amount of katas, and keep going for a few years? So that's where that thing annoys me.
Yeah, and that's kind of why jiu-jitsu has their standard. If you can't get your blue belt until you're 16 years old. Yeah. Once you turn 16, you can get your blue belt, or sometimes they go straight to purple belt. Depends on how good they are. But and they can't get your black belt until you turn 18. So they've got that. I kind of like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that Master Rickson had the biggest impact on your jiu-jitsu. If there are other people that have had more or substantial impacts, would love to hear about them, but I also would like to know who's had the biggest impact on your life outside of jiu-jitsu.
Oh, outside of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
My family, of course, has a lot of impact in my life. just, how I was raised and stuff like that. So, and, who my family is. So a lot of that has a lot of influence in my life, and just having a good structured home life, and some values at home helps. Rickson, Rickson and, I would say all the Gracie brothers, Hoist, Rorion, they all had influence on me. Even the Shadows, the little bit I deal with them had some influence on me. But I would say jiu-jitsu is one of the biggest impacts in my life that I've had, one of them. I would say the confidence level you get from jiu-jitsu, it's just huge. It was more than I expected, because you can fight now. You can actually fight very, very well, right? So, funny thing about when I was younger, I didn't fight so good. So I didn't take any fighting. My mom was against me taking any kind of fighting. So, and my mom and my dad were split up. So my dad wanted me to fight, but my mom doesn't believe in that. So I didn't learn any fighting when I was younger. So whenever, I was in school, I was a good student. I was kind of like a straight A student when I was in school. But the bigger kids would pick on the smaller kids. Sometimes I get picked on by the bigger kids, and then the kids who are more, more intellectually, sharp. They're pretty good at like cutting people down and verbally attacking people. So they're in my determination, like kind of smart, kind of have some wits around them. So I always thought that was kind of irresponsible of those people. If you're bigger and stronger, I feel that you have a responsibility to kind of not act like a jerk like that. So, respect people. So I show everybody, when you're bigger and stronger, you should be respecting people more. If you're smarter, you should respect people more and treat people better. And so when I was younger, I decided to try to become a better fighter and become a smarter person, so that when if I ever got to the level where, I was really, really smart and I was a really good fighter, that I would show people how you're supposed to treat people. You treat everybody with respect. So that's kind of when I started taking jiu-jitsu, and it really took my level of fighting up to a whole nother level. I thought, oh, this is perfect. This fits into what I want, So then you start fighting really well, and then you start, treating people more respect. I always try to treat people with respect, but the jerks that come in and treat people badly, you can talk to them off to the side, and in the olden days, you kind of beat them up in the gym, but you can sit there and talk to them, and have a conversation with them, and just kind of treat people with respect, stuff like that. So I think people who are better and stronger and better fighters and smarter people need to treat people with just more respect, and help others. That's kind of just my thing from a long time ago. So that was a big influence on me taking martial arts, and me learning how to get better and better and better at what I do. So,
well, it sounds like it certainly has had a profound effect on your life, and the course and direction of your life, and how you live your life. So what's next for you at this point in your life? What do you got going? Any plans, or what's up for you now?
Well, me, we're just working on the gym. We're working on the gym and working on my students, and pretty much I enjoy teaching students and try to make people look better at jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what, we're, me and Ryan have been working on, just teaching better and better and better and more effectively, and, getting people up to speed faster and faster. That's always the goal, because if you can get people better faster, that means you're teaching, hypothetically, your teaching is getting better. Your teaching abilities are getting better. So we're working on that. And of course, I have my own job. I work for the power company. So probably eventually I'm going to retire from the power company and spend more time with my family and keep on teaching jiu-jitsu and pretty much that's the plan.
It sounds like a great plan. And speaking of teaching, you have an upcoming seminar in our mutual friend Scott Smith's Academy in Gracie Jiu Jitsu of Kentucky. So that is going to be August 14th. So anybody in that area or anybody who can travel to that area, make sure you make that one. It's going to be a great one.
Thank you.
And speaking of our mutual friend Scott, he's in Vegas right now, spending time training with Rickson. So jealous.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Anybody you want to shout out to before we close, Professor Dave?
No, I just to everybody, just keep on training and do my biggest thing is just keep on training and don't stop. And don't. I think over the 30 years I've been training. I've taken a few for injuries. I've taken like a month, 2 months off sometimes, but pretty much never stop taking jiu-jitsu. Every single week I'm in the gym, at least one time, if not 3 times a week or 4 times a week I'm in the gym. And in between that, I'm, you're trying to get your body fit and exercise on the side. So just keep training and just keep going. I mean, even if you're moving really slowly on your progress and stuff like that, just keep training because you eventually get better. I mean, you keep on going and keep on going, you get better and better and better. And after a few years, you'll find that, you'll appreciate what you did for yourself in the future.
Right on. Just keep moving forward and don't stop, right?
Yeah.
Listen,
forever.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time and letting us get to know you a little more about you and your life. And much respect for you. You've impacted a lot of lives and continue to do so. So much respect and keep doing what you're doing, sir.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot for the interview.
Yes, sir. All right. Be well.
Take care.
Thanks. All right. Really enjoyed speaking with Professor Kama. What an interesting guy he is. Always a pleasure to speak with one of the Dirty Dozen or anyone that's been around for so long and part of Jiu-Jitsu's history. All right. As mentioned in the interview, upcoming seminar at Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Kentucky. My friend Scott Smith hosting that. Incredible guy himself. Make sure you put that on your calendar and plan to attend. I will put a link in the show notes as well. All right, up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. I've been a Navy SEAL for 36 years. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. It matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar. and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us will apply equally to all. If you think it's hard to change the lives of 10 people, change their lives forever, you're wrong. I saw it happen every day in Iraq and Afghanistan. But changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it. So what starts here can indeed change the world. You will likely fail often. It will be painful. It will be discouraging. At times, it will test you to your very core. At that darkest moment of the mission is a time when you need to be calm, when you must be calm, when you must be composed, when all your tactical skills, your physical power, and your inner strength must be brought to bear. If you want to change the world, you must be your very best in the darkest moments. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. Start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better. Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell. A brass bell that hangs in the center of the compound for all the students to see. All you have to do to quit is ring the bell. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to be in the freezing cold swims. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. All you have to do is ring the bell to get out. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.GracieJujitsuRocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.